and we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And while I'm doing my little spiel about how excited I am about the Rebel Girls, please feel free to use the chat to let us know where you're coming from and how excited you are and who's with you, like your kids, your mother, your granny, all of that. As I said, my name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library, and I have been looking forward to this program for months. I'm so excited. Today is International Women's Day, and I feel like this is the perfect way to celebrate. We are here with the Rebel Girls. I've been talking to them for a few minutes. They are rebellious, pretty awesome. And we'll be talking all about them, their books, their mission, all of that in just a minute. I wanted to let you know that we are recording this and we are in Facebook live stream. We'll be taking questions from both. If you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. I will be paying attention to that. If you have comments, feel free to throw them into the chat. And I would like to thank a few people. We are doing this program in partnership with the Ashland Residents for Equity and Action. They are wonderful partners. And also with the Framingham Library, the Carey Memorial Library in Lexington, and the Tewksbury Library. And I always find that when libraries get together, we're just super powerful. We're like super people, Superman. So that's really exciting. And of course, I like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Library, which supports all of our programming. We couldn't do it without them. So you can buy signed books from the Rebel Girls from Bank Square Books. We will put that link in the chat at some point. And I think signed books are gold. I think you probably all agree. Superwomen, yes, exactly. All right, especially on International Women's Day. So unfortunately, Elena Favilli could not be here today. She is the CEO and founder of Rebel Girls. So we're gonna miss her, but we are gonna have a wonderful chat, and she's gonna feel sad that she didn't get to be with us. But in the meantime, today we do have CaShawn Thompson with us, who is the brilliant mind behind Black Girls Magic and the hashtag Black Girl Magic, which, you know, I think has just taken the world by storm. So thank you for that. We have Lilly Workneh, who is an award-winning storyteller, speaker, and strategist who's passionate about creating meaningful and mission-driven media content. She and CaShawn are authors and have written so many of the stories that you'll be hearing about tonight. Giulia Flamini is from, I guess, who grew up in Italy and then went to London and then came to LA in order to be with Rebel Girls. So to me, that means that they drew you in.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be here actually. So
excellent. I can see that from your bookshelf. Yeah. So the way I'm going to start is I'm going to ask Lilly to talk a little bit about Rebel Girls, its mission, and how it got started. And then I will ask each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves. So welcome, Rebel Girls. I'm so excited to be here with you. And Lilly, please tell us all about Rebel Girls.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having us, Mina, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Happy International Women's Day. Super exciting to be here and to celebrate all the things that we're doing at Rebel Girls. For those of you who don't know the backstory, Rebel Girls actually was founded by Elena in 2016 as a crowdfunding campaign, and it was one of the most successful crowdfunding campaigns in literary history. And she raised an amazing amount of money and support to publish the first volume of Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, which featured 100 extraordinary women. You have it right there, exactly, the dark blue cover that featured 100 amazing women from around the world, past and present. And it went on to become a New York Times bestseller. And since then, we've published 4 other volumes, with the 5th volume of that series publishing this year. But CaShawn and myself teamed up last year to create the Black Girl Magic book, and could not have done it without Giulia, who is our art director and extraordinaire. And has the book herself right there, yes. And it is an awesome feat. And we'll get into it in this chat, but yeah, we all have it. I'm super excited that we have it in our hands and that it's been so well received. And that 4th volume was all about Black Girl Magic, 100 remarkable stories of women, Black women from the past, the present, from across the world, different periods in time. And so, yeah, Rebel Girls is beyond just the books. We also have an amazing app that is available in the App Store for everyone to download. It's currently today featured as the app of the day in the App Store, which is super exciting. And it really just brings new life to our stories, and has really cool features, and is free to download. So I encourage all parents, guardians, teachers, anyone interested in a fan of Rebel Girls to download that and check that out.
We will. So Lilly, tell us your story of how you came to Rebel Girls, and one interesting thing about yourself.
Ooh. Well, I will start with the second question. I guess one interesting thing is that I, being at International Women's Day, was born in Ethiopia. So I was born in Ethiopia and I grew up in England. I used to have a British accent. I lived in Manchester for 10 years, and then that somehow went away. I can't even bring it back if I tried. And moved to DC when I was 10. So I've kind of lived in a lot of different places. I call Atlanta home because that's where my parents are now and where I've, lived the longest, although now I live in LA. So pretty much lived in a bunch of places, but that's an interesting fact I think about myself. And my story is really briefly, my background is all in media and news journalism. So I spent the last 10 years really working as a journalist before coming to Rebel Girls. I was the editor-in-chief of a Black millennial news platform called Blavity, and used to work at the Huffington Post prior to that. But I joined Rebel Girls not only to help bring this book to life, but to also help expand our digital offerings and our digital content, and to really expand and explore in the kids media space, which has been very fulfilling for me and super fun. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about me, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you. I'm happy you're here. I'm going to move on to Giulia, because you are the Rebel Girls art director. So that's a little bit different from writing the stories.
It's different, yeah. So what I do as art director is basically, I hear the story of the book because the book has a story. And then I need to translate what I hear into a visual thing and a physical thing. So it's quite different probably. And I work very close with illustrators. So I tried also to match like the style of the illustrators to the story that we are talking about. So it means that everything can change it. Like it can be like the style of the illustration. It can be like what kind of colors they used. Everything can change. So sometimes I read the story is very interesting, but then when I go through all the steps of the illustrations, I start to love the story like deeply. And it happens like often right now. Oh, another Italian girl.
I just opened up by just like happenstance. Yeah, I love the illustrations. I mean, I love that they're different and yet work with each story. Like they're so awesome. So I think your job must be super interesting.
Yeah, also you're dealing with like different people's character, right? So you need to adapt of their timing and the need, their vision, because of course you can guide them towards like what you envision, but then they need to be free to express themselves as well. So I need to just take everything into consideration.
Wow. And CaShawn, I left you for last because I think you're, again, the hashtag fascinating. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story to get to Rebel Girls.
Well, I was born and raised in DC, and I still live here, sort of. I live directly outside of the city, like the line is 2 blocks from my house. But I don't know, I was just a regular lady. I've been an early childhood teacher for like 20 years. I use social media a lot. And so I came up with the hashtag. The hashtag was born of a concept that came to me when I was a little kid, living with all these Black women, in my extended family and my mom and my grandmas, and just like being in awe of all of them. And I literally thought back then that Black women were magic. And then in 2012, around that time, 13, I started using that hashtag online, and it just kind of took off like a rocket. And I think because so many people were able to relate to what I was conveying. I was basically talking about the strength and the beauty and the resilience and the just the enormous humanity of Black women, and how to those outside of that experience, it can seem magical to them, but it's just regular life to us. So I came to Rebel Girls when they asked me to be a part of creating this amazing book for the 4th volume of the Goodnight series for Rebel Girls. And I was more than happy to be part of this project. And Lilly came on, and Lilly and I were like ice cream and cake for a whole year, making this book. And she has become one of my best friends. And it just created all these opportunities for me, most of all just to get Lilly as my friend, but also meeting different people and telling them about these wonderful stories and illustrations in this book, and being able to share it with so many people has been like the pinnacle. I told our CEO Jess, I said that 2021 was the star in the universe. That was my year, the brightest star in the universe. So it's been an amazing experience, and I have yet to experience anything professionally that tops it. And I'm just so happy that it's a thing that I get to share. It's not just for me, it's for everybody.
Mm-hmm. That was one thing that when we planned this program, I was excited because I thought it was that adults would like it. And then people started saying, but kids would, it's for kids. And I was just like, but it's for everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely for everybody, grown-ups, kids, girls, boys, whomever, girls of all ages. When we did the book tour last fall, the youngest girl we met was a 2-month-old infant. And the oldest girl was like a girl who was just finishing her master's degree. And then of course the moms and the grandmas and the dads and everybody. So it's just expensive, and it's been a great experience. Like Almansi is saying in the chat, all types of rebels. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. And I love that concept of being a rebel girl. Like you're not just gonna sit back and take it. And there've been rebel girls throughout history, and you're shining a light on their story. So let's get into the storytelling a little bit. Tegan asks, how do you choose who you write about? Which I had the same question, because now you've expanded to 5 books? And I think they all have different topics. There's the original, there's immigrants, there's Black Girl Magic, there's climate change, and I think there's one more. So anyways, how do you get started with picking your top, the people that you're going to write about? I'm going to start with Lilly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest thing because, if the definition of a rebel girl, there are so many women who qualify, and the options are limitless, endless. And especially when we sat down together, CaShawn and I, to determine who should be in this book, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names that we, sifted through. So the first thing we did was really try to come up with some criteria around figuring out how to narrow it down. And, we wanted to make sure we had a good amount of 4 key categories filled, which were creators, champions, innovators, and leaders, just to showcase the breadth of, professions and the ways that you can show up. And then beyond that, it was also determining, okay, that we have these 4 pillars. How many women, are from the past? How many women are there from different countries around the world? How many are young girls? How many are older girls? Do we have girls who, who have disabilities? Do we have girls who identify across the LGBTQ spectrum? Do we have all these different things that we wanted to make sure the book represented? And so, there are a lot of key factors that played a role in that, and also with skin complexion and hair texture. Did we have enough diversity across, all the different ways that, at least for the 4th volume in particular, that Black women show up to represent Black Girl Magic? And that same criteria is applied, to all the books, both the Goodnight series, which has 100 women, to our minis, which have 25 women, 25 stories in those versions. And so, yeah, we, diversity is important to us across all forms. And we wanted to make sure that, that's sort of that's where we start. And from there, it's just a way of narrowing it down. Is there enough information about this woman to write their story? And we go from there.
Okay. So Giulia, I'm going to ask you, as the art director, at what point in the process do you get involved?
So I get involved at the beginning to create the cover that can just the best, because it takes like a lot of time to create a good cover. For instance, I remember all the step of the 4-volume. This one, I didn't create that one actually,
Oh,
because
I love this one.
yeah. So I joined the team as an illustrator. So I illustrate a couple of illustrations in the first volume, so the blue one, and a couple in the second one, the one. And then I started working for the company as a designer, designing the Kickstarter campaign for the second volume. So not even the first one. So I jumped in a bit later, passing. And for this one, for the 4th volume, I remember that I wanted to create something magical because there was a lot of magic like behind this book. And so I just imagined this book like with a very dark colors and very bright like accent and maybe stars and everything that was linked anyway to the night concept as the first volume is, but much deeper, much playful. Basically what we did is, it's not on me, of course. Let's just consider that our director is not the person who creates everything you see, because it's a process and the process involves a lot of people, and we have a lot of great designers in the team, all very talented and very passionate about working with this company and with these products. So that's not like my decision on everything. Just I have maybe an idea at the beginning and then we develop everything together. And together also with the editorial team, with the revenue team, with everyone, because it's like we are working together as a kind of big family, let's say that.
Oh.
And in the meanwhile, I forget the question.
I believe you answered it, but I'm not positive.
I mean, there's a lot to say, so I just got lost inside.
I love the cover of the book. We were sent like quite a few mock-ups, and I remember seeing the purple and saying, that has got to be it. Who thought of this? That's got to be the color. And then some other brilliant mind came up with putting the pictures of the women on the front and the stars. And it just brought the concept in my mind of magic, Black girl magic, to life on this cover. And it was impossible to say no to a lot of the cover design. And I got to help, like I got to change like a letter or something like that, or change a letter in the font. So I felt so included in the process, even though I had never done anything like this before. So we do work like it's a big team, and we work like a family, and everybody got a chance to say, I like this. And this beautiful book came about because of that.
Mm-hmm. We're also wondering every time like what people likes. So if we put, for instance, the 4th volume was the first one with illustrations on the cover. Mm-hmm. So we always we wonder like, would the people will like it? Is a change that will take like in a good way, in a bad way? What would they think? I mean, you work in this kind of like mystery time in which you don't know if it's the right thing, if it's the wrong thing, but in the same time you see that it's beautiful, and like every piece is like just add I don't know, an amazing thing on it. So, and then you know that it's the right thing to do.
Right. So CaShawn, I'm going to go back to you about the writing part. So from Lilly, it sounds like you all do a tremendous amount of research on all the women you could possibly write about. But then once you bring it down to a manageable number, like if you decide you're going to have 100, how do you get involved at that point as a writer?
Well, this is what actually happened. We had a team of writers. Lilly wrote some of them, but there were 4 other women who wrote as well. I wrote the foreword of the book, but they were like great authors who, along with Lilly, were the actual storytelling team. So we had 4 Black women, including Lilly, who took these women's stories, the research we did, that the names we came up with, and just what they wove these great stories that are like kid friendly without being too sanitized, to bring to life these women's life and the impact they made in their families and their communities in the world. And I'm still reading all of them. Like some of them I read several times. but there's something in this book for everybody, not just the girls. Of course, we're focusing on the girls because it's a girls entertainment and education company, but there's something that everybody can see in there that can be inspiring to them. So we had some dope writers on the team to make these stories come to life.
I like that you said it wasn't sanitized. The stories aren't sanitized. I mean, they're readable for younger girls and kids, but like, you know, you trust the reader to be able to handle the reality of the challenges that people had.
Yeah, and we really wanted that to come across in a readable way for young readers, but also in a way that they would understand that this is part of the magic, the work that they had to do to overcome sometimes what seemed like insurmountable odds to make these great impacts in the lives of other people. So I'm really I'm so pleased at how it came out.
I think I am too. So Lilly, I'm going to come back to you about my next question, which is, was there ever a story or a woman that you wanted to write about that didn't make it into the book that you were disappointed that they didn't make it in?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, like 5 more volumes at least of this book, and of all the women that we weren't able to make it, of all the books. I mean, this could be a series that goes on forever and ever and ever, and I would love for that to be the case. But I'm trying to think if there's anyone in particular, and I what I will say is that I'm great. We were really intentional about the women we selected, and I'm happy about the women that made it into the book. There are a lot of names that didn't make it, and that we still want to do stories around. So that's the purpose of our app, right? Is that there are other ways that we can still spotlight these women, because I think there are key lessons to take away from all of their stories. And the thing that we, CaShawn hit the nail on the head in terms of like the importance of how we told these stories and making sure we told the truth of these women's lives, because the whole premise is to really flip the like fairy tale narrative on its head, right? And it's to say that, even though we intentionally start these stories with, a way a fairy tale would start, like once upon a time, or, there once lived a girl. But instead of those being, what we traditionally know to be as like made up stories, these are real life stories, right? Rooted in reality, rooted in really grounding lessons for kids and parents and anybody who reads the book. I think moms, dads, and guardians reading this to their kids can learn just as much. I mean, I certainly learned a lot about a lot of the women in the book. There are many women I didn't even know about until we started digging deep into the research and saying, okay, who are some of the women who may not know, and sort of crowdsourcing that information from the team and the writers. And yeah, so that it's been, we were every page, every story, every way that we wrote the stories, every like illustration and every like feature on the illustrations was meticulously picked, and Giulia can attest to that too. She was a part of the whole process every step of the way. I can tell you every illustration probably went through at least 6 rounds of revisions. So that's Giulia's thing. We need to tighten up her jawline, or this change to the hair color, the texture, making sure that every feature was as accurate as possible to how that woman appeared, so that there are ways that these they could portray accurately for these girls. I think I don't want to think about the ones that make it. There are too many to name, but again, the app is there for that, and hopefully more volumes to come.
So Giulia, have you ever come across an image of a woman that you thought, or a girl that you thought, this needs to be in the book, and you brought it to the team?
So actually, Elena asked me, now it's like more than 4 years ago, guys, a lot of time ago. So she asked me like, what would you like to see in the book? And they were making the second one. So this one, the green one. And I was like, oh, actually, I was at school, and I really I made this research about Christina Sweden, and I couldn't find it in the book in the first volume. So I say, oh, we should really like talk about this character, because I mean it's amazing, and then she wanted to be king, and then she from queen she became king, and I mean it was so fascinating to me. And then I found out that they put Christina Sweden in the book, so that was amazing for me. I was really proud of it. And I'm not like a writer or a very like deep reader, so I don't know like as many stories as Lilly probably does. But I know that I really want to see her in the book. And then another thing is recently started to use TikTok. I know I'm very old for it, but yeah, I tried. Not making videos, but just I know how to scroll, so I just watch the other videos. And I found this mother and daughter couple. The daughter is, I need to read because I don't remember the name, but it's Sheena, I guess, Novalinga. They are like Inuk. And in TikTok, they put this video in which they are like throat singers. So they sing like this kind of amazing song in Inuk. And I started to think like that could be like a story for our books. And actually, after a few days, I realized that the where part of our books they are in the Powerful Pairs, and the mini series in Powerful Pairs book. So I don't know. At this point, I think I want to learn more from like the next book from them, more than like me suggesting people, because I think they know much more than I.
I love that one of your sources is TikTok, though. I mean, it sounds like you went to every possible source to get the most diverse and inclusive range of people to write about. CaShawn, I know we talked earlier about the possibility of you reading maybe a little bit from one of your favorite stories.
Oh yeah. It's hard to pick a favorite. Sometimes I just like flip through and just go with whatever I see in front of me. There were a few women that I insisted be a part of this book because of my own experience in trying to include someone from my own, age cohort. So being as though I am firmly Gen X and I grew up with hip hop, I chose Roxanne Shantay to be a part of the book. And I can read a little bit from this page. I mean, she's so inspiring to me. And I remember looking up to her, as a girl in hip hop. When hip hop first started, it was just all guys, and her being in the genre really drew me in. So Roxanne Shantay was a rapper. Once upon a time, there was a girl who got into rhyming battles instead of fist fights. In these rap battles, she said as many rhymes as she could think of as fast as she could. She used her words to slay the competition, win money, and make a name for herself around the neighborhood. When she was 14, an influential DJ invited her to his studio to record her first single, Roxanne's Revenge. She stepped up to the microphone and poured her feelings into her lyrics. On her first try, she made a song that sold more than 250,000 copies. After her breakout hit, she took the stage named Roxanne Shantay. Her song started a rap battle where rappers dissed each other back and forth in the Roxanne Wars. She usually came out on top. People respected Roxanne for her ability to freestyle or come up with rhymes on the spot. She won most of her rap battles, but many male rappers couldn't stand that she was better than them. One contest judge even gave her a low score just to keep her from winning. Though Roxanne never got super rich, she earned respect. She made 2 solo albums and kept her skills sharp. Sadly, she wasn't always paid what she was owed, but one day she found a clause in an old contract that said that her record company would pay for her education. She forced the company to honor the agreement and got her PhD in psychology. Roxanne paved the way for other female rappers and showed girls everywhere how to raise their voices with pride.
That's wonderful. I just have to sigh for a minute before I go on to more questions. Lily, your Wi-Fi is kind of coming in and out, so I'm not sure if you'll get a chance to read, but we could try it.
Okay, is it spotty? Can you hear me and see me?
It is spotty, but if you turn your video off, we might be able to hear you better.
All right, let me try that. Is the audio better now? Can you tell me if do I sound a little clearer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry that that's the case. It's been glitchy all week. I'll do a quick reading of one of my personal favorites and a newfound phenom, Amanda Gorman, who we all know from. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. Who we know from the inauguration, and whose story I find personally really inspiring. So here we go. Amanda is a poet. And CaShawn, if you want to show the illustration, that would be great, just so that folks can see
gorgeous
how great accurate she looks. From, this is the iconic red headband and the yellow jacket she wore on inauguration day. And I love this illustration. So I'll dig into the story. Once there was a girl who had no idea that one day she would wow the world with her words. As a child, Amanda realized she couldn't hear like other kids did. She wasn't learning to read at the same pace as her classmates, and she had trouble saying certain sounds. But she didn't let those challenges stop her from expressing herself. In the 3rd grade, her teacher introduced her to poetry. Amanda loved how beautifully the words could paint scenes, create characters, and bring messages to life. Writing poetry came naturally to Amanda, and reading her poems aloud helped her practice her speaking skills. In her powerful poems, Amanda advocated for change in the world. In high school, she began to win awards for her work. She even became the first ever National Youth Poet Laureate, an enormous honor. At 22 years old, Amanda received the invitation of a lifetime. She was asked to write a poem for 2021 U.S. presidential inauguration. On a cold January day, she stood before the crowd and cameras, and the wind whipped around her as excitement swirled inside her head. After a pause, Amanda opened her mouth. She held her arms outstretched, and with a strong, clear voice, she delivered a poem that called for hope, diversity, and unity in the country. The world new to fame, Amanda said, "I am learning that I am not lightning that strikes once. I am the hurricane that comes every single year, and you can expect to see me again soon."
And her birthday was yesterday. She's 24 now.
Just a baby.
Yeah, look at oh,
I love that. Giulia, do you want to show any particular images that you really, really liked?
Allora, let me see. A lot, actually. Well, I can share. Is it too egocentric if I show my illustration?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Maybe
Show it off.
But yeah, I'm very close to this illustration, but only because that was a starting point with Rebel Girls, because that was the first commission that I had. And in the meantime, I was working for another company in London, and during the night I was working on that. So it reminds me like a lot of things, like me in the dark, like trying to figure it out how to illustrate this amazing woman. And then they sent feedback to me. I mean, it was like the first collaboration. So everything was new. I didn't know the brand. The brand wasn't actually famous. It wasn't so famous because the first volume still had to come out in the market. So it was like, okay, a friend of mine, these 2 friends, Elena and Francesca, and so they want an illustration for you. I said, okay, let's do that. But I mean, I didn't even think that was like such an important product in the market, I mean, It was like a big impact, especially when you see all these little girls very excited talking about the book and how it was something in their life because they could maybe change, like, I don't know, what they want to be in the future. It can be an example, you see examples that you see like a lot of women, and you can be one of them in the future because they are our future. So it's very important that they grew up with this example that we didn't have, or I didn't have at the time. And so, I mean, yeah, looking back, I'm just like in love with that, but not because it's mine, because it represents something. And then we also need to understand that after, like, behind every illustrations, there is also the illustrator's story, because I worked with Iranian illustrators, Russians, any kind actually. So they sometimes, I don't know, they delay the delivery of the illustrations because they are in another amazing story, I don't know, or maybe they share with me where they are, why they use the colors that they use. I don't know. Behind there is another story that we don't tell. I mean, they tell maybe through the illustration, but of course it's like a story in a story in another story.
I love that, because I think that the idea of putting words and pictures together is so powerful, because it reaches so many more people. The way that people learn by reading or by visualizing, or, you know, whichever way. Like, that's why comic books are so popular, because it reaches people that learn in different ways. So I just love it. So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and I'm going to go to the audience questions because we have a bunch. Just really quickly, was there any particular thing that you learned while writing or illustrating the books that surprised you? Lilly?
That surprised me. Nothing. I'm trying to think if there's any particular thing. I mean, I was just I really admire just how thorough the process was. I didn't think it would be so thorough. I think that's what kind of took me aback, was just that, you know, from the illustrations in particular, just making sure literally every like beauty mark, every like arch of the eyebrow, every curl had to be, no one was comfortable moving forward unless it was, you know, like all accurate, especially CaShawn. She made sure, you know, every jawline was like perfectly structured and drawn. So that's I would say, you know, I found that to be really, really good. And, you know, surprising was also just the reactions from some of the girls we saw on the tour. They were so happy and so excited, and, you know, so like their energy was so infectious, and it's surprising in all the best ways, because I wanted it to be well received, but, you know, just to see it in person and to have moms bring their newborn babies to the tour and to meet us was truly wonderful. So that would be that for me.
I was thinking more in terms of the stories, like as you were, you know, researching your stories, was there anything in particular that like really, you know, you were like, wow, I would never have known that?
Oh, I had one. I definitely had one.
Go ahead, CaShawn, while Lily's thinking.
I had and I love talking about this story in the book. I had no idea that there were 3 Black sisters in the US who were professional wrestlers. They like professional wrestlers, like in the 50s, in the 1950s. Like, who would have known that? Like, I don't know who came up with the idea to include them, but their story is one of my favorites because it really illustrates in a big way how Black women show up everywhere, in everything, in every way, and how everyone in the world gets to benefit from that. And to Lily's point about the illustrations and how meticulous we all were about making sure the illustrations showed up, for me, it was important that the way the women looked was accurate, because the way they look is a very important part of their story. Their skin complexion, and with the trans women, that they had a different jawline, you know, and that they had a different stature and that kind of thing. And that was so influential in the lives that they lived, in the lives that they do live. So for me, it was important that those things were accurate. So yeah, I was kind of a stickler about it, but everybody understood that. And I was supported 100% in that. And I think that those girls who relate to those experiences will appreciate the representation in that way.
Lily, did you think of something surprising?
Yeah, I mean, along the lines of just women that we didn't know about before, that we were like, wow, this story is amazing, we should include it. Another duo sisters, Ruanne and Sheila Jeter, were two sisters I'd never known about before, but they had filed patents and for their creations and inventions, which were everything from, I mean, some of our favorite household supplies, like the toaster and a stapler. You know, things that I never knew that, you know, they had created and filed patents for, and never really got their due credit. And so that was one of those, that was an important part, was what are some of these undertold stories that we never knew about that should be in the book? Because we know a lot of the, you know, famous names like the Amanda Gormans and the Angela Davis and the Aretha Franklins, which are still important because the newer generations may not know them, but there are also so many undertold stories that go underrepresented. And yeah, that was one that when we were doing our research, where I was personally really surprised by, and was like, well, we should, this is a key definition of what an innovator is. And so that, yeah, I'd say that one was one that really resonated with me and caught me by surprise.
Thank you. And Giulia, was there something in creating the art for any of the stories that really surprised you?
Yeah, so for the first volume, we hired this illustrator that works with paper. So that means that she sketched the first like couple of sketches at the beginning of the characters. We liked them. And then of course they needed to choose like the right paper to do that. And then she started to cut the paper in very like little pieces to create illustrations. And she of course sent an email to us saying, that's my technique. So if you have any big feedback, please don't wait until like the last step, because otherwise I had to do it again. And we actually had a very big change at the end. So, and it's her. I want to show the illustration because it's amazing. So her name is Anderson Subrian. She did a couple of illustrations in the book. And yeah, that's I don't know if you can see it, but that's like little pieces of paper. And it's about this woman, Chido Govera. Is it
one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of my favorite stories.
God loves that story.
That is amazing. She started a business like with mushrooms, growing mushrooms. And so our feedback at the end, when she completed the illustration, was like, actually, the mushrooms are not exactly the ones that she grows. And so, like, I don't know, many hours of work, she had to rework on the mushrooms, like matching the real ones. And she was happy to do that. I mean, it wasn't a torture for her, but I mean, it's just like, I don't know, it's amazing. I love this illustration. I should do another one. I don't know if I find it. But it's, yeah, they are both great, and this technique, I mean, it's very tough, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's interesting to me that you have diversity in terms of like the people you're writing about, but you're also using diversity of like the art form that you're using as well. And you didn't say to everybody has to be in, you know, watercolors or anything like that. You really encouraged everybody to be themselves.
Yeah, we have some parameters actually to respect. So we have, like, for instance, historical accuracy. So if I don't know, someone has lived in the 1800s, you cannot show her like in an environment that is something that is nowadays, like furniture or the clothing. So it has to be accurate in that sense. And then also, of course, the skin tone, as CaShawn said, the hair are very important. So if someone has a curly hair, you cannot cheat. You have to just draw the curls, all of them. And then we decide, we go for a caricatural style. So the proportion has to be accurate in that sense. So we have some rules to follow now.
Yeah, of course, you want some sort of consistency, I guess. CaShawn said yes to all the artists women. CaShawn, you wrote that just to the hosts and panelists.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, all the artists are women. In our book in particular, they're all women, and they're all Black women in films. So we wanted the diversity not to just, when people say diversity, they feel like, okay, we can have this group, and if we toss in a woman, it's not diverse. And if we toss in, a Black person or other person of color, it's diverse. But within those spectrums of womanhood and Blackness, there's so much diversity. And that was one thing that was really illuminated for me personally in this experience, to the point where I'm actually changing a major for my next degree to be diversity, equity, and inclusion. But diversity within communities, we had a book that we were tasked with writing and curating and editing all these stories about Black women. But just within Black women, the diversity is enormous. Like, it's so wide, and we got to include so much. And it made me think about how we all should be thinking about diversity. And it's not just, let me add a woman, or, let me add a Black person, or, let me add a Latina. Diversity is so much more than that. It's skin tone, it's hair texture, is body size, it's, how you show up, from what community you come from, and LGBTQ family members and that kind of thing. So it really, I learned a lot, and I've definitely learned that. That was something that was hugely illuminated for me through this process. And I'm hoping, because the illustrations are so diverse, that the people who read this book, the kids, the grown-ups, whomever, also get, that understanding.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's true, that we've gotten kind of used to that word diverse, but we don't really walk the walk sometimes. So, and that is such a special thing about the Rebel Girl books, because it seems to me like you guys have thought about every aspect.
We definitely think about every single thing, because women show up so many different ways in the world. And if you're going to do a series highlighting women, you got to catch as much as you can. So we really put on our thinking caps for these books. And I really feel like Lilly and I really, we tied our thinking caps on tight, because we had so many names to choose from. We had 700 names.
Oh.
We had 700 names.
So let me dig into that just for a minute before I go to our attendee questions. Is that when you have 700 names, do you just have a little line of information about that person and you have to choose?
Well, we have our editorial team was really helpful in helping to gather a little bit of information about every woman. Some women we already knew, right? Some, like I said, are well-known women, and the ones who are lesser known, they included a little bit more information. And then again, that's broken down by category. So, each category needs to be broken down to, from 700, maybe we get to 125 per category. And then from that 125, we then identify, pull pictures for them and talk about attributes of their story. And it's meeting after meeting, session after session, determining, what are the lessons here that we, what makes the story strong individually, and what is the best collection of stories that sends the best message, collectively. So individually and both, as a group. So it was that was, like I said, one of the hardest parts to narrow that down, because it is, we wanted diversity across the board too, not only in their appearance, but also in their profession and in their stories and backgrounds and in their abilities and disabilities in some cases, and in all the ways.
Yeah, I think you had talked about that a little bit earlier too, which I just thought it bore repeating, that it's hard, and you could do this forever, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So Kathy asks, really quickly, is there another book coming out soon?
Yes, it was just actually announced today in celebration of International Women's Day. If you subscribe to the Rebel Girls newsletter, you go to the website and put your email, you can get more updates. But Our volume 5 of the Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls series is coming out later this year in September, and it's all about 100 young change makers. So it highlights amazing women and girls under the age of 30 who have done remarkable things in their lives and in their communities. And that, has a beautiful cover that Julie and the team have mocked up, and comes out later this year. And it has a foreword by Bindi Irwin herself, who is a conservationist, environmentalist, and is a really rebel girl. And so we're very, very excited about that.
Excellent. So maybe Laura can put in the link, the newsletter, how to sign up for the newsletter, as well as any information about the new book coming out.
Just rebel.
Jennifer asks, what made you come up with this idea for Rebel Girls? And I know, again, Elena's not here, but where was the spark there? CaShawn, Lilly, Julia, were you in on that spark?
Julia, Elena's about this a lot, and they did a really viral video for their crowdfunding Kickstarter campaign when it first published, and the whole premise for the campaign and creating this book was to really fill the void of representation, like the lack of representation of women in kids' books. A lot of kids' books feature aren't based in reality. For one, they may feature overwhelming majority feature animals and non-human characters as the protagonists of these books. A lot of times, if it does feature a woman, usually she is the victim and is waiting to be rescued. And so there wasn't really many stories at the time that told the real life stories of what it showed, what it means, and what it can look like to be a woman. So that was really the impetus creating the first volume, and from there it was really well received. Like I said, when going on to make crowdfunding history, going on to be a New York Times bestseller, and it had the support to now do 4 volumes, and the second volume it was also a New York Times bestseller. So I think it just goes to show the success of the book shows the need that it is helping to fulfill for younger generations.
Mm-hmm. So Martina asks, do you write the podcasts on the Rebel Girl apps? This is Bridget.
So our team, the women here, we don't specifically, but we have an editorial team of writers, and we also tap other writers to help write some of the content for our app. There was once a podcast, and that content is now in the app, where we tapped real life rebels and industries, so that vary all kinds of industries, to narrate the episodes. And so those stories are specially curated, totally different from some of the books. They're longer, have more elements to help you better visualize their stories, more in depth, because we have more time in the audio version to really dig deep. And so there's a separate team that works on that, and they're even more thorough, and the stories are even more inspiring.
Okay. So how long does it take to make a book from start to finish, from idea to publication?
The 4th volume that I worked on, the idea came to me in August of 2020, and the book published September 28th, 2021. And through that whole time, we were working, like all the meetings that Lilly mentioned. We were having meeting and work sessions, and I wasn't even on all of them, but the amount that I was just a fraction of everything that was going on. I was working my full-time job and going to school at night, and the nights that I wasn't doing school, I was in the Rebel Girls meetings, and we did a lot. And it was like I said, it was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Then we did the book tour for 3 or 4 weeks after the book was published, and that was great. So it was a lot of work involved, and the next volume is just going to be as amazing as the first ones were, and I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I think we feel the same way. Stephanie asks, and this is for you, Julia, how do you select the illustrators for each story?
So we have parameters for the illustrators, but also parameters for us. So we would like to bring, as CaShawn said, bring the diversity for the illustrators as well. So it means that we are trying to match as much as possible, like the culture behind the person and the illustrator and the subject. And then there is another thing that I think of is like to match the story of the subject with the style of the illustration. So, for instance, I don't know, right now I don't want to spoil anything, but we're dealing with a Peruvian subject with a very colorful clothing, and I mean, we know the Peruvian culture, I mean, is full of colors. And so for sure, in that case, like the illustrator has to be someone with that background or with that kind of hand and an eye. So I want to see like something very, very colorful that match like that kind of subject. And the next book would be amazing, I love it. I love it. It's super colorful, made by very young people. I'm also working with 12 years old illustrator. So, I mean, I'm just, I don't know, I'm in love with this book. So I can't wait to see it printed in my hand.
I feel the same now. Nicole asks, and this is a really good question, I think, did some of the people in the books help with the book, help with their own stories? CaShawn?
Yeah,
Lilly can answer that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, for all the living women, we definitely we sent them questionnaires. So we had a Google form, and we gave them a heads up that they would put it in the book, and asked them if they'd like to submit a questionnaire so that we can help them tell their own story. Not required; it was totally optional. It definitely helped us to be more accurate and to choose the quote that they would want us to include and detail that they would share. And if they chose not to, then we would just do our own research. But yes, we let the women know. Many of the women, all of them really expressed a lot of excitement, and many of them helped us to promote it and showcase and celebrate the book upon its release, at least for the first volume and for all the other previous volumes as well. So yes, we did reach out, and it was great to have them be a part of the journey as well.
And on social media, some of the women that I in particular had asked to include Bree Newsom, who was the heroic rebel girl who climbed the flag in the pole in South Carolina and took down the Confederate flag. And she and I had sat on a panel together maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And so I reached out to her and told her about it. And she was like, yeah, great. Of course. And then after, I got amazing feedback from her and quite a few of the other women who are, with us and use social media. So it's been a great experience all over with some of the people who are actually in the book.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you could really fangirl over this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I really did. The women that I got to meet and talk to, I can't even describe, because I don't Lilly has been in media for years and that kind of thing. I don't get to talk to famous people, and I've gotten to talk to famous people and the most amazing rebel girl women and girls ever. So it's been great.
Mm-hmm. And Giulia, do the people that you're illustrating or your artists are illustrating, did they have any say in the art that ends up in the book?
Well, not to me directly, fortunately, but no, we don't actually share the illustration to the subjects, to the women that we have in the book, before the launch of the book. So we don't receive feedback from them, but we maybe ask them in advance if they can send us a particular photos as reference, but we don't share with them the processes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would imagine you would get a lot of Yeah. So a bunch of people have asked in the Q&A what your favorite stories, and I think we sort of went through that earlier. I know, CaShawn, you had said Roxanne Shantay, Lilly. I don't think you mentioned anybody in particular, but I think, were you going to think about it, or were you?
Yeah. For me, it's really, I mean, just naturally a lot of the storytellers in the book, you know, women like Ava DuVernay, Issa Rae, you know, there's phenomenal writers in the book, Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison. So women who are storytellers in their own right, Ida B. Wells, are some of my personal favorites.
Thank you. Yeah, those all fascinating and interesting women who've made their mark on the world, I think. Jennifer's got an interesting question. Did you think your books would help people?
Yes, I think I have to answer that question only because I've said this before, that I feel like if I had had this book when I was a girl, that my world wouldn't have seemed so small. You know, I grew up in a household who celebrated Black culture, but it was always very male-centered. It was always very historical. So I didn't get to see images of Black girls and women contemporary, you know, or a lot of Black girls and women celebrated at all. So if I had known when I was a kid that there were Black women who were fencers, or Black women who were engineers, or Black women who were swimmers and that kind of thing, you know, the scope of what I could imagine for myself would have been much wider. So I think this book I'm hoping it is, and I think it is, helping everybody, not just girls and not just Black girls, to see that the world is so big and there are so many things that you can do and be in the world, and your place in it is just waiting for you. So again, I'm fangirling a book that I helped write, but it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I really hope that every girl that reads it, especially girls, since this is International Women's Day, is, you know, inspired by something in the book.
Mm-hmm. I'm just inspired by everything you just said. You know, it's just the fact that that this is a book, and this is an organization that's their entire mission, is to help girls see themselves in what they could be.
Yes. And I'm so honored to be a part of it. I really am. And Rebel Girls, you know, they owe me nothing. They really do. Like, I can't imagine what my life would be now, even just a short year and a half after starting working with them. You know, I just see things so differently, and I feel so much more empowered. And I'm hoping that every girl that opens any of the Rebel Girl books get the same inspiration that I have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, something. So sometimes it's like that we work in a kind of a Big Brothers environment, because we don't see what is happening like out there, because we produce things in-house and we talk to each other. So we don't have like this kind of conversation with the readers. But sometimes we receive videos, we receive love notes, or we interview the little girls. And that's the point in which we realize that we are making an impact to their life. It's like when the people in the Big Brothers like come out of the house, right? And they say, "Oh, I'm famous now." So it's like that. It's like living in something that we don't see, but is happening. It's like the change is happening.
Mm-hmm. And it must be so rewarding to know that you're part of that sea change for the audience that you're writing for and creating these books for. Lilly, would you like to end our conversation tonight with a thought on what you would like for people kids, girls, anybody to take away from this series?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a small little blurb in the book that answers that question. So I'll just read that out loud, that I think really sums up what we hope reads the book takes away from their experience reading it. So it says, "To the rebel girls of the world, believe in your dreams, embrace your power, unleash your magic, and always remember you are limitless." So that's my key takeaway, and what I hope everyone else does takes away from the book as well, is to feel and be limitless in all ways.
Thank you. That is just ideal, just absolutely ideal. So I would like to thank you for spending your hour with us, Lilly, CaShawn, Giulia. This has been inspiring to me, and I'm seeing from the chat people have been really loving this conversation. I'm hoping their daughters and their grannies and whoever is out there is really getting what they want from our conversation, and go out and get the books. You can buy them signed from Bank Square Books. And I've had put the link in the chat, but I really do.
I'm sorry, just to jump in really quickly, Nina, you had mentioned having folks register for the newsletter, and it doesn't allow, when you go on the Rebel Girls website, if you go down to the bottom, it's a little pop-up in the middle of the screen. So there's not a specific link, but go ahead and I'll put the website in the chat and you can register for it that way.
Perfect. And I'll put all of these resources into a recap that I'll send to everybody who signed up for this program. I would like to thank the attendees. Please use the chat to let us know what you thought about this program. And while I do my final spiel, which is to thank obviously our speakers, CaShawn, Lilly, and Giulia, but also to thank our partners, Ashland Residents for Equity and Action, and our fellow partner libraries, Framingham, Lexington, and Tewksbury. Without them, we couldn't have done this program as well as we did. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you'll be buying these books and reading them as a family, as a classroom, wherever, however. So
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. It was great.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a wonderful evening.